Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Taste of Transformation. I'm your host, Charles Lewis, and today we're gathered for a special but insightful roundtable discussion about critical issues impacting our justice system. I'm honored to introduce our distinguished panelists. Today we have Cheryl Cates, Esquire. Make sure I put that up in there. She is an
Thank
attorney
you.
passionately representing individuals on parole, advocating tirelessly for meaningful reform and justice. We also have Ms. Michelle Bonet, a dedicated paralegal whose daily interactions within the legal system provide critical perspectives on systematic barriers and opportunities for improvement. There's Ms. April Lee. She is a devoted mother whose firsthand experience navigating the justice system through her son's journey offers us vital insights. And Ms. Nicole Backus, joining us today as a valued community member, bringing a fresh viewpoint as someone without direct involvement in the justice system, but deeply concerned about its impact on our communities. Today, we are addressing the recent and troubling incidents involving the killing of Robert Brooks and Messiah Nantwi and their implications for justice, accountability, systematic reform. Our goal today is to focus not only on understanding these complex issues, but also on identifying actionable, solution-focused steps we can collectively take toward justice and equity. Thank you all for joining us, and let's get started. So we want to start with each of you introducing yourselves. Tell us who you are, why you're here, and what you're looking to share with us. We'll start with you, Cheryl.
My name is Cheryl L. Cates. I'm a defense attorney working mostly with Department of Corrections cases with Tier 3 ticket, disciplinary appeals, parole, and clemency. I also own Changing the Narrative Film, which is a company where we are seeking to provide insight to people that aren't in the trenches in the criminal justice system to see that people coming home are not all the people that you're seeing on the news with new crimes, and that there are many, many people here that are doing what they need to do to have a productive life and impact their community. We started off, our theme was I'm Not a Menace to Society. And we're getting ready to launch that project. It's not launched yet. We've run into some roadblocks along the way, as usual. And I also do work with them in the music industry with several record labels, and I'm a consultant at a dispensary with the cannabis industry. And I'm a model too, so.
Hi, my name is Nicole S. Backus. I am a nurse, a mother. I'm also co-owner of New York Queens Unplugged podcast, and also owner of Summer Rising Films, LLC. I'm here today because I am basically want to give my view or take on what I've seen so far in the justice system, especially in light of the recent killing of Mr. Robert Brooks. I have had the opportunity to be at some of the rallies and hear some of the stories, and they've just been mind blowing. So that's why I'm here today, just to kind of give my view on things that I've seen and heard and stories, people that I've talked to that have been at some of these rallies.
Thank you for joining us.
Mhm.
Ms. Lee.
My name is April Lee. I am here as the mother of an incarcerated son, and to discuss the must needed changes in the Department of Corrections. I also run a Facebook group for mothers of incarcerated sons.
What's the name of your group?
Mothers of incarcerated sons.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle Bonet. I am a paralegal. I am a formerly incarcerated individual, nationally certified professional mediator, and I'm a founder of a Facebook called New York State Docs Federal Oversight, and Cheryl and April, both administrators of that.
Thank you for joining us, ladies. And let's get started. So we'll start off with set the context, and feel free to jump in, whoever wants to answer. First, how have the recent events, specifically the killings of Robert Brooks and Messiah, impacted your perspectives on the justice system?
Well, I have to work a lot harder now because the Department of Corrections went out on strike and they don't do their job. So that makes it very pleasant of not being able to have any free time anymore because we don't get document requests in a timely manner. We couldn't have legal calls for an extended period of time. And now they're tampering with the legal mail. So it's made our life very difficult to do our jobs.
Question. So do you think that they planned this? Would you say that they planned the strikes to divert attention
Absolutely.
from what was taking place with Robert Brooks?
Absolutely. And again, you can try to do that all you want, but the facts are the facts. We all saw the video. You murdered somebody, a human being, on video that was handcuffed and helpless. And the others that didn't participate in the torturous actions, you stood there and smirked and watched like that was business as usual, which all of us that are in the trenches know that is business as usual. The only difference is you did not know about remote footage on a body camera, so you got caught. And for me, the audacity for other correctional officers to be aware that this just occurred at a prison across the street, then you're going to go and murder another incarcerated individual on the same hub across the street. You know, you don't care that your fellow correctional officers are being held accountable and being tried for murder, and you go and murder someone else. That tells me, that supports our thought that this is beyond an isolated occurrence. This is a systemic pattern and culture of violence. This is a gang.
And so for those of you who aren't aware, on December 9th, 2024, Robert Brooks was a 43-year-old black man who was transferred to Marcy Correctional Facility from Mohawk Correctional Facility. And he was repeatedly beaten by 5 officers. Mr. Brooks was handcuffed while he was beaten, and it was caught on camera. Ms. Lee, so for you being a mother of someone who is currently incarcerated, when you saw the video of Mr. Brooks and then you heard about what happened with Messiah, what went through your mind?
I think that a lot of things were brought into perspective because my son, has told me stories over the years of things that he's witnessed. My son himself was assaulted by a corrections officer at Marcy Correctional. So it just brings to light the realness of what goes on in the facilities as far as the corrections officers go. If you could watch, I believe I'm saying it right, the Stanford Prison Experiment, just in a matter of weeks, what the so-called corrections officer little team there in that experiment, how they turned and how they were violent. I think that these guys do feel that they're untouchable. I think that they have that blue code of you don't say anything, you turn a blind eye. I think any corrections officers, civilian staff within the facilities that do speak up are retaliated against themselves. And again, this was, as Cheryl said, business as usual. This, we come to find out after the AG released the original body cam footage. Cheryl and I had spoken on different occasions that there was definitely going to be more to come. Come to find out that I believe Mr. Brooks was beaten twice between the Sally Port, or 2 or 3 times between the Sally Port and actually entering the infirmary.
And there was an incident at Mohawk that led up to him being moved to Marcy.
They don't transfer you to the for no reason. It was not. They weren't taking medical. They're taking him there for the resident squad.
So after seeing the video, how did it impact you? Do you all remember the first time you watched the video? Remember what your thoughts were?
I literally thought it was a joke. I thought somebody uploaded some bull crap. And I was like, how did this get on TV? Because this is not real. There's no way. I was sick to my stomach. And I'm like, that's somebody's child. And then to find out who it was, because I am aware of his father, to think that that's somebody's child and that it's all over national TV and that his loved ones have to wake up every day and have that image in their heads of their loved one's final moments. I couldn't even imagine being in my later years, going on 50, to have to fight for my deceased child at this age, and this is how I'm carrying out the rest of my life, is fighting for his name, fighting for justice for him. And I just thought it was the sickest thing that I've ever seen. And I'm like, there's no way. And when I watched it, I watched the actual devil himself come out of that screen, and you can see the demonic activity that was going on. Those were not human beings at all, because human beings don't do that to other humans. Those were demons in motion, and they were very active. And the demonic activity that was going on in that room, it was unfathomable. I couldn't even imagine. So, I don't really know what his family's going through. I know that they're holding up. I know that they're strong, but I know from what I saw, I would be that would definitely break me. That would break my spirit. And I give it to his family for being resilient and doing what they have to do and holding strong. But that was like the saddest thing ever.
When I watched it together, we knew it was coming. So we worked together pretty heavily on a daily basis. We're also business partners, and we knew it was coming. And
When you say you knew it was coming.
the video, we knew it. Once we knew the video was being released, we already knew the circumstances. When I tell you that it is business as usual, it is. And I wasn't shocked. What I saw was the visualization of what I've heard over and over and over in previous stories. It just actually made it very, very visceral for me because it was real.
I remember I rewatched it. I was on a Metro North, and I watched it in its entirety. And I got very angry. One of the first things that I said to myself was, yo, what did this man say to them for them to do this to him? That was one of the first thoughts that I had. Like, he must have said something crazy. Like, 'cause he's handcuffed. I'm watching them step back, launch forward, kick him while he's handcuffed, pick him up by the neck, drop him back down, beat him. And immediately my next thought was, it doesn't matter what he said to them. You are supposed to be a correctional officer. If you cannot handle words coming from a man who is handcuffed and cannot physically do any harm to you, you shouldn't be an officer. And I was wondering, what is the training that these officers are getting? How are you not able to handle someone saying something out of pocket to you when you're an officer? And I felt bad for both families. For Robert Brooks' family, because they're sitting here and they actually saw their loved one, saw how he was killed, how he was murdered. They saw it, and the whole world saw it. And I felt bad for the families of the officers, because for me, it said a few things. You're either going to be, if you're the wife or the brother or the sister of those officers, you're either going to be disgusted by what your family member did, and it's shameful. They just brought shame to your family, or you support what they did, and it says a lot about your thinking. It says a lot about your family. And I had to close. I was watching on this laptop. I had to close the laptop because I was getting very, very, very angry. Why do you think that despite this increased awareness, not the first time something like this happened, nor was it the last, a couple of months later, happened or we heard about Messiah, why do you think incidents like this persist?
Back to what you just said real quick, about the families, like feeling bad about the other families. I personally believe that because everybody's viewed that video. I personally believe that when you see stuff like that, to that degree, um, those families had to know that those demons existed within them. There's no way that you can just come home with not having some sort of aggression, because you're not just taking it out on those inmates. You're showing it somewhere in your life, somewhere in your daily life. So whether that be at home, you know, with your kids, with your wife, it's being known. So I personally believe that those families knew that they were showing some sort of aggression. So I don't feel bad for those families. I don't.
Do you think that the families were aware that the officers who were involved in that case, that they were capable of doing something like that? Yeah.
Definitely. Because let me tell you something. I've been in the nursing field since I was 17, right? And I take care of my patients to the best of my ability. I took an oath and I stand by that. I'm not going to wake up one day and now decide, oh, I'm going to go to work and I'm going to start offing people. That just doesn't, that's not an overnight thing. That's something that, okay, my kids would have to say, oh yeah, I've noticed, last couple of years, my mom's been off. Like there's signs, you know that what a person is capable of, you know what a person's not capable of. I can, I could tell you right now what this lady sitting right next to me is capable of and what she's not capable of. And you just know when you have a family member, somebody that you're close to, somebody that you have everyday interaction with, what they're capable of. I'm pretty sure these people were coming home. They were bragging about other incidences, talking about their jobs. We all have hard days at work, right? And some of us bring it home and some of us don't. But at the end of the day, there's no way you could tell me that you're married to one of these men or you're the daughter of one of these men or the son of one of these men. And you could not tell that, there's a possibility that my father might, hey, end up one day being engaged in some activity that might cost him his job or his livelihood because he's just in too deep. Because I'm pretty sure these men, they were just proud to just do this, regardless of the cameras are on or not. Like it was just too free. I just
As somebody who's seen it, the culture is the thing within prisons. It's a mentality that's very hard. A lot of people have put on the garb, the guise of this job, right? They want all the things that come with it. And you're talking about a generational thing. People don't just start working in the Department of Corrections, okay? Your parents, your uncle, these are prison towns, all right? Everybody's related, everybody works and all, their kids go to 4-H together. Their kids are in Little League together. They're on softball teams. They're sitting down next to each other at the same bar. This is an encompassing thing. I believe that they put on a lot of the perspective of this. Don't tell me how to do my job because my job is dangerous and you don't want to come and do my job. So we're going to do this job the way we have to do it. That's not what society is deemed appropriate. That's not what I believe this should be a calling. And unfortunately, I personally feel like it's the summer youth employment program.
I personally think it's the extension of the American plantation and the slavery system.
And it is. And it is. The systemic conversion from slavery to incarceration is well documented. So many different pieces of literature, current literature, Michelle, the new Jim Crow. Yeah, I mean, it is. It is.
10th Amendment that slavery is abolished unless a person is a prisoner, unless a person is guilty of a crime. And so so what that says to me is that it's not that America doesn't believe in slavery, because if they thought that slavery was in and of itself wrong, they would abolish it completely.
I think a lot of people don't understand the translation of incarceration to slavery. I don't think that people really, I think people picture people in these big buildings and these places and they're just, I don't really think that they rationalize that when they were building a new DMV in the town of Bedford, they made sure to build it into the side of the female prison so that it could staff it. All right, there's a company called Courtcraft. They manufacture in prisons all over New York State, the things we sit on, the things we wear there, everything, our toothbrushes, our toothpaste, everything is made. And what people don't realize is that when they're at little playgrounds and parks in the summer, those grills, those are made at Albion Correctional Facility, little placards like on the door that say restroom, those are made, and people are not understanding that they don't understand the way that the machine moves and what moves the machine.
The prison system is literally sewn into the fabric of America. Certain companies have now moved away from it, but not forget that Victoria's Secret, McDonald's, Wendy's, Idaho potatoes, still currently Idaho potatoes. Those potatoes are grown packaged by prisoners. Wendy's, their uniforms were made by prisoners. Victoria's Secret, for a while, made by prisoners. Department of Motor Vehicle, the license plate, made by prisoners. And because they are deemed slaves, it's legal. Get away with it. They can get away with it.
Because the culture can't change overnight. And slowly over time, these towns emerged. And what I think people don't realize is when you see somebody do something wrong, they don't do that. The repercussions of that in the rest of your life in that town, with your employment, with your kids' play dates, people don't understand. And they will turn on themselves just as easily to keep that thinking. So you're not changing that overnight. And it doesn't matter if it's the flavor of the day in the press. They know that that press rush will die and they'll still be there. And they will continue to do what they want to do unless things change.
I think it still circles back around to the analysis with the slavery, because it starts out, we'll look at the incarcerated individual's journey. So when you enter prison, you're stripped of your identity, which means you're not viewed as a human being anymore, or whatever your name is, you're the number that they assign you. So if you look at that and compare it to like a movie that most people are aware of, the Roots movie, where they took the individual's name and changed it. I think the name was Kunta Kente to Toby. So they changed him and stripped him of his individuality. They stripped him of his identity and say, "Oh, your name is this now." And it continues because, and I think you shared a story with us as well, and I've heard them from my clients where up north, they get on the draft bus. So obviously you get put on a bus when you go to different prisons. And when they got off the bus, it was like, "Hey, welcome to the plantation." And then they're, berated, called the N-word, whatever else. We could go on for hours about the different types of abuse. But then it's deeper than that, because those are the ways that we see it starts off, okay, we strip you of your identity. And then you get to part two, we're in control. We're the overseers of this plantation, and you're going to get in line, or we're going to beat you up or do other stuff to you. Then it's now starting to also include things of emasculation, where, part of the daily routine is you end up getting strip frisked or whatever. And now they're doing things like grabbing people's genitalia just because they can, or just even doing things that you wouldn't expect anyone to do, like be rough, like if they have to do a cavity search or things like that. And it leaves you to say, like, who is this person that you can do that to somebody? Which I can't say this because I'm not a man. You could help us with that. But that, to me, would seem like the worst kind of trauma that you could suffer when you're incarcerated, to the point where someone like violates your personal, it's almost to the point that it's like rape in some kind of way.
It is a molestation. I think like incidents like these persist because docs is very secretive about what happens on the inside.
And
There were no cameras on the inside. And so we finally got to see it with Robert Book, because we finally got to see it. That wasn't
That's
the
the
first
key.
time. That wasn't the first time that has happened. It's just that it's finally getting out to the world.
evident. They can't lie there.
We saw rallies, we saw outrage, we saw a lot. But don't you think we should have seen more? Well, okay, so it was at a very dynamic time in the country. Politics has the press scrambling all over the place to cover so many stories. But when we saw a person with neon and the country watched that person die, there was extreme, right? We had Black Lives Matters began. This was this huge movement. We saw much worse in this video. And we did not see nowhere near the equal outrage. Is it because we put less of a value on a person who's in prison? Yeah. Yeah. Less value on a human that is incarcerated than a free person. It's unfortunate because it's still a human. And also, I love how the world doesn't think it could happen to them. You know, these are the perspectives that allow this huge gap between what prison and that environment really is and what society deems it. You know, and the people who work in these prisons, a lot of them feel like they are entitled to be part of the punishment. It's what they saw their parents do and their parents do before them, and it seems to work. And they want that job, and they want to sit in the chair the same way, and they want to do what they feel is their birthright. This job, I got to do. I'm going to be a sergeant. My parents were this, and you know, I don't think that it's a calling of professionalism anymore. I think people believe it's their birthright to work here, and that working there means that they're entitled to be part of the punishment. And that's not, they're an administrator of a program. They are not the penalization itself. Nobody told me that I had to go spend 4 to 12 years being berated. And no, I was supposed to be separated from society for society safety. And I was supposed to have that opportunity to learn from the error of my ways and do something about it. Not come out traumatized because every day I'm enduring some sort of penalization by people that this is not evidence-based. This isn't, you know, this is just, I'm in a bad mood today. Actually, what we saw during the strike was that it was, first of all, the biggest tailgate party I've seen in New York City. There were some prisons where there wasn't a single staff person. The National Guard had to come and take over. They just walked right out. And what we saw was the greatest display of the mentality there. Some guy pulled up his truck and did the ice bucket challenge, jumped in the back of his, with no clothes on, right? We had DJs, we had the town donating wood so they could have their fires. And this is twisted. There were people inside, post-operative, maybe not getting their medical care. We had a man with diabetes going blind because he wasn't getting his medicine. People hadn't bathed, but they're out there having a tailgate. This is the perspective that people need to realize, is there's a whole culture here.
That happens, yeah. So I briefly want to touch on two things. It's relative to what you all have said. So I remember when I was in downstate, I think this was something I was sharing earlier. I was in downstate, and you come in, you go downstate. That's the hub where your medical stuff supposed to get taken care of, and then from downstate they ship you to whatever facilities you're going to spend the majority of your time. And they have you strip, have you wash, and all the light stuff, taking care of your hair and everything. Yeah. And I remember standing naked, and the correctional officers standing in front of us. And so it was literally an us against them. And they said, if you even look at our women, if you raise your hand towards us, we will kill you and we will get away with it. And those were the exact words of the COs. And I went through a lot of emotion. First off, you're humiliated because you're naked. Then there's the frustration of having to keep yourself calm when another man has just threatened to take your life, and he's staring at you face to face, looking you in your eye when you say it, and you can see the seriousness in his eye. I've had people outside on the street tell me, "Shut up, man, I'll kill you." And I'm looking at them like, "No, you're not." Right. But when you look into someone's face and you know that they're serious about what they said, and you're used to being a fighter and fighting for yourself, it makes you think, like, looking back, now I have to think, well, if this is the mindset of the officers as the guys are entering, how is this supposed to be helpful? How is this supposed to correct the men or the women who are inside? This is supposed to be the Department of Corrections. How is another officer threatening to take my life and being serious about it? How is that supposed to help the situation in any way? And then we see the video of they did it. and they're getting away with it, even if it's, even let's say they do eventually get locked up. If I would have killed someone and was caught on camera, I would get locked up immediately. But because they're correctional officers, they don't. The second thing was, you said that the word doesn't think that it can happen to them. And I think, Ms. Lee, this is a great segue for you to speak about that, because you and I have had a brief conversation where we're a part of the world that didn't think that it can happen to them.
I do want to just touch base if I can, as far as the video of Robert Brooks. In my experience, visiting numerous facilities throughout the state, in my opinion, once you get past Hudson, the Hispanic and Black correction officers seem to almost disappear. And the further north you go, you have mostly white COs in what appear to me as racist counties in the state of New York. My son's firsthand experience at Marcy Correctional, he was called on the walkway over to a sergeant who told him if he saw him hanging out with the NIGDRS, that he would get the shit knocked out of him. So I just see that in the Robert Brooks case, and as Baya, that this was, most definitely racially motivated in my eyes. Although the audio was not on those cameras, the only reason to me that this is not a hate crime is because there's no proof of what was being said to this man while he was eating. That's just my opinion. I don't have evidence, but I can almost guarantee you if there was audio that this man was called out his name numerous times, which would then make this a hate crime.
Or if the roles were reversed, if it was a group of black men being on a white male who was handcuffed, they'd be in jail immediately.
Yeah, and following other, even if you follow on the Department of Corrections Facebook page, you will see Channel 2 News up in Utica. The people up there and their response to Mr. Brooks' death, even though it's on video, was very disturbing. Coming from members of the community that were saying, what did he do? He must have done this. Even in George Floyd, oh, he was formerly incarcerated. Oh, he died because of drugs, not because the knee was on the neck for 9 minutes. They're always looking for some reason in their minds that they believe this behavior happened not because the COs are animals, but because of what the other person did. And that's scary to me, that there's actually people that exist upstate that feel that after watching that video of this man be killed, that there's some other reason other than what we actually saw.
Right.
So I just wanted to touch on that.
Thank you.
But yes, for me, as a mother of an incarcerated son, my biggest thing that I've learned, and I think the mistake that I've made in life, was living life thinking something like this would not happen to me, that my son wouldn't get arrested, and that I wouldn't be dealing with incarceration. As a parent, I knew nothing about incarceration. I knew nothing about the system. And I had to learn everything. And I did. And for me, once I learned what I learned about the justice system, about incarceration, about how others, not just my son, but everyone incarcerated, is treated, I could not turn a blind eye to it. I had to help in changing it, not just for my son. Like my son was pepper sprayed by a correction officer while he was laying in bed at Marcy Correctional. And he had all the evidence.
Can I interject though? So I'm playing devil's advocate now. And this probably isn't going to sound good when I say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. So, based on, yes, we all acknowledge there's racism throughout the system, industrial, structural, etc. However, your son is a white boy and he still got beat up. So, does this, in your mind, does this go with the premise that the people that were murdered because they were African American? Or does it go more with the premise that it doesn't matter who you are? If you are an incarcerated individual, then you will be brutalized, and any type of white privilege that you have prior to entering prison, you don't have it no more because it's us versus them, correctional versus incarcerated individuals.
It's the scarlet letter.
It's the scarlet letter.
It's the
and
scarlet
of course,
letter.
I have to bring it up.
Well, you know, it's just it's the scarlet letter because it's like it's not a socioeconomic thing alone. It's not a racial thing alone. It is an us versus them thing. And that dynamic shifts if you're down here, you know, that dynamic is, you know, more driven by people who are more racially diverse. And if you go up there, but the dynamic doesn't change that much. It just it has different elements, I think. But yeah, I think a white person could
I think that every incarcerated person is subject to this type of behavior by the correctional officers. However, I do feel that people of color are treated differently than white people. Even though it has happened to my son, you know, I think that it maybe that's because the population is percentage-wise more people of color. However, I just feel that they, just from the stories that my son tells me about how others are treated, like he has a total different outlook on, you know, kind of why incarcerated people do what they do. I think that you know, for me, it's like you can only poke the bear. Even though my son has been on the side where the sergeant tells him, don't hang out with those people or I'm going to beat the crap out of you. It's just even hearing it is, you know, something that my son's like, geez, like, why does it matter who I'm hanging out with? Like, we're all in here in the same situation. But I think you just see racism more towards Black people, even though there has been plenty of white people, I'm sure, that are incarcerated that have definitely dealt with abuse in the prison system.
And I do agree with you that there's racism, but I always have to play that other card.
No,
I'm
no,
an
no,
attorney.
That
I
was a really good
want
question
to
because
like get the conversation out there.
I was actually thinking about that too. I was wondering that and I also feel like by you addressing that, by you asking that question. So let's say you don't like Black folk. Oh, fine. But understand that it's also happening to your people as well. And it's about correcting a system that is harming human beings.
I saw the numbers, like, this is our famous argument. So Michelle's laughing because she knows from other time. So we had a tier 3 case that came out of Clinton Correctional Facility. And I don't do the hearings because I don't have time for their shenanigans with that. But we decided we were going to do showtime at the Apollo, and we did a tier 3 at Clinton, and we did a tier 3 at Upstate. So
and I had to tag along, you know.
yeah, she had to tag along, but so I'll give you, and this is relevant to this conversation because it is just reinforces it. So in the first instance, we had our client was given a tier 3 because he said let's get it poppin' to the ORC. And he was talking in reference to the next stage of something was filing a grievance. He wasn't saying, let's get it popping, like he was about to jump on him or anything. There's video footage, showed the CO walking past. You could hear the dialogue on the video. CO pays no mind, walks all the way down, walks all the way back. So I got the CO to just say on the record, there was no problem. And I was like, so even when you sat down, we see you're not paying attention to this person. You're writing down stuff or doing whatever. Everything's functioning. There's people walking through. There's no guards running up here to grab them. And, the person walked back to their dorm like nothing happened. But now we got a ticket saying, let's get it popping. So I just had to do it. I couldn't leave it alone. So argument 1 in our tier 3 was that the ORC didn't understand Ebonics. And that's what the problem was that we had. And I continued with my showtime at the Apollo when we started. And I was like, all right, let's get it popping. And I was like, were you scared of me when I just said that? And he was like, no. And I was like, why? Because I'm a white woman? And he didn't know how to answer it. And then just throughout it, even the hearing officer, besides her thinking she could yell at me during the hearing, that was funny. But she was like, oh, you're not going to badger my witness. And I'm like, that's not your witness. That witness is for this case. You're the hearing officer. So you just blatantly said your bias on a hearing tape that's your witness. But again, it goes to the culture of it too, because there was no aggression with that statement. And it was the next step of the appeal process was to file a grievance. And you're going to lock somebody up and throw them in the box.
So they threw him in the box. They threw him in the
Absolutely.
box.
And then this was
So-
after HALT and everything. Let's throw this out there. Do you think any of them really know what HALT is?
No. Well, not. I don't want to say any of them. I do think that some of them do. I don't want to put them all in a box. But,
What was their opposition? Like, why would they not want it? Why would you not want HALT? This sounds great. Like,
why would you not want HALT? But also, I watched it, and there was a CEO on. They were having a roundtable discussion of CEO, and he was saying that HALT wasn't needed. That people needed to be in the box, and the people that were in the shoe were people who were basically committing like horrible crimes while they were incarcerated. Like that is absolutely not true. One of the main reasons why HALT is in place is because, and I was incarcerated. I was in fish jail. CEOs would take somebody and put them in the shoe or carrying bread out of the mess hall. CEOs would put someone in the shoe because as they was walking past the CEO, they may have cursed at the CEO. Are you supposed to be cursing at the CEOs? No. I think that's pretty stupid. Don't curse at the CEOs. You know what they will do to you. But is it worth being thrown into a box in solitary confinement where you're kept away from another human being for days and or end?
no,
It's not
you're
worth
right.
it. So
it's crazy because I'm sorry, I don't mean to just.
no.
Oh, this one really pisses me off.
So let's
This
talk
whole
about
thing
let's
about
talk
this
about
HALT.
the HALT and them using HALT as one of the reasons why they were striking.
There's some things going. So they're saying that HALT takes away the penalty. Without the penalty, you have all of this adverse behavior. Right? But we've just discussed a number of instances where you can be sent to solitary for things that are absolutely not solitary worthy. You're picturing somebody doing something horrendous to end up thrown under the jail. I spent 79 days in solitary. It was the worst experience of my life. When I tell you I lost my mind, it's very hard to explain why it is. It does have such a huge impact. It has been proven that after how many days in solitary confinement changes the chemical construction of your brain. Okay, this is not like light stuff. This is heavy duty stuff. HALT brought us in harmony with the Nelson Mandela rules of torture. Okay, so you're absolutely right to ask that question. What's the problem with HALT? The problem with HALT is they felt like they were losing something. And that's not in their world.
Something. Power. Let's do that because we have to put first to that. They felt like they were losing their power. And for the correctional officers out there, they be watching, listening. Hope you are. you're not losing your power. It's just giving you a different way of using your power. That's all we're asking. Do I think that solitary confinement is necessary for certain cases? Yes. If someone just killed someone who's inside a prison, lock that person up. You got to lock them up, right? Because you have to keep the rest of the population. But why are you throwing somebody in solitary confinement because they cursed them? Man up. Man up.
Penalty. Okay, that's the other thing. When we over abuse one range of our penalty, we do not use the full range. Okay, they could have them out cleaning the walkway. They could, there's so many, you could take away loss of rec, loss of packages, so many different variant ways that could actually be like a carrot in front of the horse that would drive somebody to maybe modify their behavior to be more appropriate. But this doesn't teach anybody anything, not this way, because it's not measured, and penalty not measured, not earned or processed.
In the reform in Correction Law 137, the act must be deemed so evil and heinous that you can't be in general population because you're a threat to the safety or security of the prison. But but they're still doing it. Like, and there's, the Fields case is a class action that's been filed against them. And in fact, all their policies have been declared null and void by a court in June. And yet they still continue to not adhere to the court orders. So, no surprise there.
So, Nicole, I have a question for you. The recent events that have taken place, how does it alter your perception?
Honestly, to me, there's the supervision is like you're going in there basically to be tortured, to be brutalized. Like this is my opinion. Like I feel like now after seeing that and hearing so many other stories, like when you go in there, not only you going to you're definitely going to do your time, but you don't even know if you're going to come out. You don't know if you're going to end up dying. You're going to come out mentally ill. You don't know what's going to happen. You're definitely not going to come out better because there is no real reform. So I don't know. I don't know what they need to do. I don't know if they need to close them all down and start from scratch and just rebuild a whole new system because the one they got now is not working. It's not working.
You would think that the community would want the department rehabilitate because these guys are getting out and rejoining the community. So wouldn't the communities rather have the individuals released with not so much trauma? I mean, you stick somebody in the box, you said how many days, what it does to the mind. I mean, that person has to become angry. They have to become, or even being treated the way you are. I'm sure there's so many guys in there who have bit their tongue to being called names, to having their head knocked into the wall, or someone hit them with a baton for no reason. You can only poke the bear so many times before you get a reaction. And I feel like that's kind of what goes on. I also feel like within the department, I often relate the way the COs work is join a club, or me and Michelle go to CPS. I steal a lipstick. I get away with it. Next, I'm going to go steal 5 things. I get away with it. And it's going to escalate till finally I'm stealing a car. The more you get away with something, the worse it's going to get. So when you start working as a CO and you see that your brother in blue has went into somebody's cell, kicked the shit out of them, and goes to a hearing, and the incarcerated individual is pleading his case, and a higher up, the brass in the facility, is conducting the hearing, basically telling the incarcerated person, doesn't matter what you show or what you do, you're guilty. 99.9, Cheryl will tell you, % of the time, you are found guilty because the higher ups are conducting, which is unfair. And that's just showing the CO you can get away with whatever you wanted. And it just keeps escalating and escalating and escalating, and no one's saying anything until someone's life is taken. Then it's hidden. Exactly.
Reason why it's being such a big deal right now, one of,
is because it was finally caught on camera. It was finally caught on camera.
Here's the question about that. And it's something that really we haven't talked about, but it is important to us. That passive footage that's there, right? The camera, it's recording. And if they don't turn it on, it's still recording, just not with audio now, right? And it's not held in it as long as the recorded video, because that'll maybe get passed on. That passage footage that's in there. We've always known it's in there. The day those cameras came into Albion Correctional Facility, an officer told me that day, well, better stop playing with this because these record even when they're not on. We've known this since the day the manufacturer gives a description of what a product can do, correct? When you buy a camera, you know what the
What year were the cameras instituted?
2021, 20 before that,
So-
okay?
Correct.
So now what I want to know is actually
Where's all the rest
earlier.
of the
Right, because
So
I'm like,
so they've had this ability. When you buy a camera, you get an owner's manual, so we know what the camera does. We've had tons of incidents where there's been facts in dispute. Why have they never done it before? Because they didn't want to look at it. This time, what made it different, I believe, what we had found was that somehow or another it came by way of the hospital and medical that demanded that initiated some demand for action, probably because nobody wanted to be responsible for what they were coming across.
Right.
Right.
They didn't want to get the
Well,
blame.
in the past, that has not
Because it was
happened.
medical.
But we have known that these, so that's one thing. Actually, it was before 2020. I believe those cameras got put in place in 2019. Now let's talk about HALT. HALT's been in place since 2021, right?
But it didn't go into effect till 2022.
Right. But that sure wasn't during the death of somebody. All of a sudden, now we want to protest something that has been in place.
For 2 years.
Okay. But what I'm trying to show is they know what the cameras did. They don't want to look at them. They know what they're doing right now. They just don't want to talk about it.
And they don't want them. That's part of why they went on strike too. They don't feel they need to wear body care.
So I'm just what I'm trying to get you to see is
Make it make sense.
it's like an onion. You know, there's so many layers to this perversity. And you know, what I always like to say when I'm advocating for a situation is, okay, make it make sense. If you have access to cameras and we have questions about what people are doing and you're not looking at it, make it make sense.
And the horrible inmates lie about you and this and that. Well, now it's
Yep.
on camera, so
Make it
nobody
make
can
sense.
lie.
All right. You
And I
have
say that
a
sarcastically.
policy in place for years, but now you want to detract away. And now all of a sudden you want to protest because you don't want to face up. Make it make sense.
But go back to what April said as well. Sorry to cut you off. But the part we didn't bring out about these hearings, right? There's commissioners, hearing officers, people that are trained to do the hearings that are not working at the correctional facility. But I don't see them on these tapes very often. Once in a while, the rest are employees, you know, of the jail. So what do you think the captain of the jail is going to do? Same thing. They told you when you got there. These are our officers, so save it for later. But in the hearings that we did, the two, because again, I have no desire to continue to do those hearings. I'll stick with my lane with the appeals. We had one, which was a female. She was the depth of mental health at Clinton, which she was a civilian employee for that, not the OMH people. And then the other one, which I know why we got him for that. The other one, we had 2 assault on staff tickets, and they really beat the hell out of this person. And you know, I went in hard on him about that, which every time I could get on the record, I was like, "Oh yeah, when you attempted to murder this person," which I got yelled at for doing that several times throughout the hearing. But that was a commissioner's hearing officer on the assault on staff, which obviously I did that hearing for a reason because that case is going to civil. So, you know, obviously as an attorney, I'm going to get whatever I can on the record in the tier 3. So we can use it against you later. And that was absolutely the whole purpose of doing that hearing.
Processes to get things resolved. Like it is such a long and arduous process to get something undone, reverse. I was reading case recently. I was reading a case about a man who moved. Somewhere in his move, they lost his stuff. They said, wait, we're looking for it. And then by the time they got it, they told him that they absolutely lost his stuff. He couldn't file for it. It's too late. Right? So this went all the way to the state Supreme Court. It had to go to the appellate division. We're talking about a couple bags of property. You mean that you can't in this day and age own up to the fact that you lost the property and replace it? No, we're bogging down our systems because right at every single turn, they won't acquiesce ever, not even to the most absurd of things. Like you're going to go to the appellate division for 2 bags of property. Like this is absurdity.
For you as a mom, have you and what are the barriers of balance?
I make myself well known. I do not back down to them. I email superintendents, I get on the phone. I always call the facility. If they try to tell me something different, I tell them what's right. I won't say that they like me, but I'm always speaking my truth.
Would that every prisoner had a mom like to look out because, there's so many people who don't have anybody engaged in their life. And I'm sure that you have faced challenges. Have they ever threatened to
I think they're threatened it's like, well, if they're doing this now, if we were to do anything, the heat would come on more. That's the only reason. But even after, the Brooks case and people started, after the strike happened, there was, and Cheryl doesn't even know about this, but there's rumors or not rumors, but posts from other people stating that so-and-so is in, X correctional facility and they're not giving the meds and he's screaming for help and, they're getting word from their people. And then here I am sending that to the superintendent of the facility saying, just letting you know
What's going on?
what the social media is saying you may want to look into.
And that's the beauty of the group with New York State Docs Federal Oversight. And, we're pretty active in there. There's a lot of veteran people that have been doing this for a long time since the beginning that's like a little tribe, and everybody steps up in there to help somebody. So for instance, they'll post something like, hey, my loved one's at upstate. What's the visits like there? Can I get in with this? But then it goes to the point of we had an issue this week. There are 2 incidents where they posted that people got beaten severely in different jails. One was Bear Hill, one was Mohawk. They knew the name of the person. Nobody knew how to contact their family. And they needed help. So we do this on a regular. We got involved and we have colleagues that we go to. And me and Michelle got on that. And that's not my client. I don't even know who that person is. We went and we started getting it posted all over the place so they could find his family. And then we went to our colleagues that help us with different things. And we made sure the commissioner knew about it, the director of OSI knew about it, the legislature knew about it. And we utilized the people that we go to help us. And we got word yesterday that the person that was severely injured, where we even were hearing stories that he was dead and they put him out on a stretcher, but they must have seen him going out in the stretcher to go to the hospital and they just assumed he was dead. But we actually helped get this man medical care and they weren't sending him out. And it was severe injuries. So that group to me is everyone's not like April. Everyone's not educated. Everyone's not in the same context that they'll step up and take the risk to do that. But that's the beauty of this group. And I like watching it evolve because we've seen people that they'll come in, you could post anonymously if you choose to. And we have told them to do that lately because we have mole problems with COs trying to come in our group. So, but it's really beautiful to watch someone come in that kind of sits back like a little wallflower for a minute. And you'll know they're in there. And then all of a sudden, here comes this fierce warrior that all of a sudden just came out of nowhere. I'm like, what? Well, I'll sit there. And then that one's like feeding everybody else and then spreading on to the next one. And we have some girls, younger girls that get into it sometimes with the old school people. because they're new, and it's funny to watch them. It's like the little mother hens, and I'm like, okay, let's see, do we gotta stop that or do we let it go?
Just wanted to say one thing about the group. I have a coworker that whose son is incarcerated, and she really needed a lot of help because her son has suffered third-degree burns. And I'm not going to get into how it happened, but he did, and he needed medical attention. And so I connected her with Cheryl and the group
Suffered third-degree burns out of
inside of
facility.
a facility. And so in that group, she was able to find out who to contact at that particular prison to get her son seen because he was requesting to go to the nurse and they kept refusing him. And at this point, the third degree burns became infected and it was, pus and all that stuff. And they were concerned, that he possibly could go septic.
New York
Federal
State
oversight,
docs,
yes.
federal oversight. It is, but we want to make sure that people know that name.
Yes,
So
New York State docs, federal oversight.
NYS for New York State, NYS docs, DOCCS, federal oversight. That was the goal. We wanted some oversight, and we were trying to create a community where people could get help, where people could help each other. Not everybody comes from a justice impact background. So people get thrown into the system and their families don't know, packages and what can you send? How do I visit? What can I mail? These are huge questions, how do I calculate the date of them getting out? And, there's just those sorts of things that it's like a whole alter universe. And you know how like when you play a new video game, you've got to learn all the parts of the video game. It's the same thing when you get to prison. Got to learn everything new. And it was really great to just create an environment where people could go and find help. It's really, there was no connection. So we created an environment where people could connect, where we could collect issues, we could get stats, kind of keep a monitor of what's going on there. Because it is very cloistered, you mentioned earlier. It's a very secluded, you don't know what goes on behind the wall. Well, guess what? Now they have tablets, they're making phone calls 24/7 on those tablets. Now we've got families that are using the internet in new ways. We're using social media. And it's a collective that's never been connected before. Nobody had like over 30,000 prisoners. If just one person cared about each one of this person, that'd be another 30,000 people, right? That's a huge amount of people walking around our state in New York that are disconnected, that could be connected. And each one to each one.
So with your state name again, that is
New
a long
York
name.
State, NYS DOCCS, federal oversight. We are a Facebook collective.
Cheryl, you're in the group. We have lawyer, we have a paralegal. So there is a group. Say the name again.
NYS DOCCS, federal oversight.
On Facebook, you have questions, if you have concerns, go on Facebook. It will also be in our link on the Taste of Transformation on our YouTube channel and on our Spotify. There are people here who help you. I think you have to. You no longer, Miss Lee, you also have a Facebook group. Would you speak more about that?
I founded Mothers of Incarcerated Sons probably about 5 years ago. For me, the journey, there were just so many unanswered questions. I felt alone. I needed to interact with people that were going through that I was. So I formed that group. It has 6,000 members, 20 years currently. So it's a safe place for mothers to be able to come, talk about their feelings, talk about things that might be going on with their sons in the facility, getting advice from other mothers on how to handle those situations.
When I came home, I had the conversation with my mother about like, what was it like for you? Like, what did you go through? My mother was at my sentencing, and I don't know if you go to them sentencing, they read off every single thing that you did in that crime. My mom heard everything, and I was charged with attempted murder, so she heard everything. And when I came home, I asked her like, what was going through your mind? And she gave me some real hard truth. Like, I was ashamed. I never would have thought that the child that I pushed out of me could do something like that. She was embarrassed because now she's going to the family reunions and the Christmas parties with family members, and everybody's looking at her like, your son is a piece of you know what I mean? And I was the only person in my family to have gone to prison. So she had no support. She didn't have any support. She didn't have anyone to lean on, and she couldn't lean on me. I'm locked up. And so to have a group for mothers, especially for mothers, I think dads, we tend like, our sons go to gym, like, this Negro right here. I done told him, we tend to handle it a little bit better, but moms get really emotional. I failed my child. I did this. So to have a supportive group is very important and needed. So take the just off. It is not just a group. And to be connected to the group with Michelle and with Cheryl. So it's like they not only do they have the emotional support for moms, but then there's also that legal aspect that comes with it. So you all are doing like great work.
Which we don't give legal advice in our group. We discourage solicitation.
There's no
However,
legal advice.
No, we definitely lead them to the answer that they're looking for. And if they need the help of legal services, that goes outside the group. They have to go to individual offices for legal help.
Okay.
But we do, for instance, I do lives on there to teach them about the stuff that's going on. We got CCA and Community Not Cages. They're all in there, Melanie and Thomas and stuff. So we got people lined up. So what we did when it started happening, like Rochester, I was speaking in the Rochester rally and Sarah and Thomas. So we put on the group. I was like, if you want to come to the rally, but you're scared because you don't know nobody, you don't know what to do, come find me, which you could find me with my red hair anywhere in the crowd, but I'm speaking and I'll bring you up there with me where you're safe and you could come be a part of this rally. And we got group members here that'll look after you until you learn how to be a part of this part of it. And when they have the lobby days, we link who's going. They list, everybody puts their name on there, and then we tell them, go find each other in there and be together at the place. And we link them with people that are more experienced, that are more than willing to step up and say, hey, this is what you could do for your family member. You could come to lobby days in Albany. You could come to these rallies. And we kept them safe at those rallies when they came with us. And we were at most of them. Derek and them did more of the New York rallies, and they did come up here.
April was in Albany, and then I was in the one in New York, so we had representatives. It was all going on the same day, but we made sure, and we try to get people, it's like we'll list directives. So like, if someone's having a problem with visitation, we may not be able to give you the legal answer to your specific situation, but I can show you the directive. I can explain what should have been done. We can give you somebody who, if you've got a problem with packages and so these are just the learning curve of having somebody incarcerated. There's so much information that you need to learn. You realize that. I didn't know when I went to prison that you had to have sent stuff. People had to send you things, or you were, I had no idea about any of that. And, there was this huge learning curve that doesn't exist anymore for people. They can go there and they can figure all that out.
There's a perfect way for us to segue into solutions. Before we've already shared what we believe the problems are. But now let's talk about, before we end, let's talk about what do we think the solutions to some of these issues are. And so in your view, in light of what happened with the killings, with Mr. Brooks and with Messiah, what does meaningful accountability look like? And if you have to take a second to think about that before answering, do so. Like, we have officers who are in charge of keeping those who are incarcerated safe. And they're actually doing the opposite. They did the opposite. They killed them. Accountability needs to be there. The same way that the men who are incarcerated because they had to have been held accountable for their crime. The CEOs need to be held accountable for their crimes as well. What does that look like?
One of the principles that we're supposed to look at when we're sentencing people is deterrence. So, yeah, they need to be held accountable. They need to be locked up, just like the people that they were watching because they broke the law and they should not get any privileged treatment because they were correctional officers, because you were not acting in the scope of your employment. You were acting outside the scope of your employment. So they need to hold them accountable and they need to do whatever amount of time that they're going to get, which we're going to make sure they get a lot of time in the group by getting all our members to send lots of letters in for their sentencing. And I'm going to allow them to write about each time they got abused by those individual officers, because we're actively searching for people that they also abused that never got their voice to be heard. So that's one of the things I think is necessary, because they do that to our people.
So you said letters. How powerful is it writing, whether it's coming from people who are incarcerated or the family members? How powerful is that? And how much, like, how many people do we need to write letters, and what should they be writing in order to put this at the forefront of?
Whenever the cop body people go, which that means someone that killed an officer, the PBA, which is their union, there's cases, the ones I've worked on, there's 5 bankers boxes full of letters. They do a national campaign for all their members and whoever will look on their site to write letters. And this is why those individuals usually do around 40 years, because there's 5 bankers boxes. When we try to FOIL request them, or not FOIL, it's under the parole document statute, that we have to pay for anything we're getting record wise. One bill was $1,500 just for the letters from the PBA. And that's a portion of what is considered at parole. So I work in the parole sector, but these letters are also used at sentencing. So anybody can send letters in to the judge, because what happens is either you take a plea or you lose a trial. Then they're going to set a second date for sentencing. So during that time, the probation people do the PSI, which is pre-sentencing investigation report. That goes with you upstate. So this is why these letters are important, because one, nothing from the case goes upstate except the sentencing minutes. So if someone took a plea, that's where the whole combo is about what happened in this case. So they just get the little transcript that says, you're going to jail 25 to life, see you later, for someone that entered a plea. Because they only look at the sentencing. They don't look at the plea minutes. And then they look at the PSI, which is the report that probation did. So that'll go through your background, your criminal history, whatever. And then they give a little suggestion or whatever they think your sentence should be. And that goes to the judge to consider for sentencing. So in the sentencing portion, the victim's family, or the victim, if they're still living, they are given the right to make a statement as sentencing. So that goes in the sentencing minutes. And that's part of the record. So when it gets to parole, that's in the sentencing minutes. Now, they're supposed to also include any letters submitted at sentencing, because anybody can send letters in. That doesn't always happen. In a lot of the cases, they're not in there, even though they were supposed to go with the whole package. The letters didn't make it. So it's like almost like, so if you're trying to make sure that what your thoughts are is heard, and to influence this in any way, then you have to write letters when the person's getting sentenced. And then when you find out when they go to parole, then you got to send more letters, because every parole board, community opposition letters can be submitted, and victim statements or victim family impact statements can be made at every parole board.
So should family members of of Robert Brooks and of Messiah, would you recommend that they write letters calling for the conviction of the officers that were involved?
Yes, but they have attorneys, so they have to tell them whether or not to do that. You get what I mean? Because they're represented by counsel.
So what can we do? Like, what
We can write letters.
because
The
we've
family
seen,
doesn't have to do it. We can do it.
Well,
well, we've seen on multiple occasions where police officers, have killed people and gotten away with it.
Right.
What can we do to stop that from happening?
Consider. I mean, part of how we got here is that the systems are complicated. There has been so much cross-pollination between, everybody's related in this entire place. People don't
People don't understand the degree to which people are related. But since everybody is connected, related, they all live in the same towns and they're all sort of, it has circumvented the systems. So I think it is time for us to develop some new checks and balances, as is appropriate when social policy fails, right? We have a set of things in place that no longer effectively manage this environment. So we definitely think we need to reevaluate that. And the Office of the Ombudsman is a great place to start. We're talking about an external higher authority for tier 3s, for parole abuse, for these situations that should not be managed within us. It's not effective, right? You know, if you're my next door neighbor,
But
we
that
go to
doesn't
work every day.
cover those entities, so that's still going to be corrupt at the end
No,
of
but when we talk about solutions, starting to look at ways to get, there's no one and done, but
No, right. But what I'm saying is when you spoke, it just comes off like you're saying the ombudsman, which I'm a lawyer, I got to clarify it. It makes it sound like you were referring to the ombudsman program to encompass all the rest of the corruption. It really only takes care of a small little thing, which is the abuse. And that's it. And then we still got to go back and try to do something about the rest because that doesn't fall under the ombudsman bill.
So with
the way
the-
that it's written.
So with the ombudsman bill, when you're saying that
It's to
it
investigate
attacks
abuse, like
the
correctional
abuse. So
officers.
what I'm talking about on the
assaulting
whole
people.
is like, you know, redeveloping the checks and balances. If you say what does accountability look like to me? Accountability looks like to me, instead of just walking around and doing a round, you would have to like beep every time you go somewhere. You ever see like when security guard has to, okay, I'm talking about let's redo the checks and balances within the system. How are you doing your rounds? Who is monitoring you? What responsibilities do you have to account and document your day? You know, the same thing that's being done. But if you look, the investigator general, one of her biggest issues with HALT is the fact that it cannot be monitored right now because the systems within the Department of Corrections are so archaic and old that they're using log books like it's, the Ebenezer Scrooge in like 1902. You know what I mean? It's like really old. You know what I mean? Like where's the quill, So it's like, we really need to freshen this up. And Lucy Lang said this. She said, well, how can we figure out if HALT has even been effective if we can't even look at the numbers properly, right? So what does accountability look like to me? Accountability looks like management redeveloping these systems, policies, and procedures to effectively supervise their staff in a way that takes the supervisory role, somehow or another disjoints it from. And it's possible. Corporations do it. Amazon does it. Everybody in the world functions within a set of parameters where they're held accountable and they have to function, right?
Yeah.
So that's what accountability looks like to me. Let's like join the real era that we're in. Let's automate some of this. Let's dust off some of these procedures that are completely ineffective. Let's redo our checks and balances, and let's create some new offices that, you're perfect example is the prison, the Stanford prison experiment. What it proved was that any two given people, if you have a set of people who are going to be under the purview of another set of people, that people that hold that purview over that other person will get corrupt. It is just the nature of humanity. When we know that this is a factor, it proves that these systems can't be stagnant. Right. And they need to often be reevaluated for their effectiveness and modified effective because, often, this is not like you just leave people to their own, because this specific occupation has occupational hazards that we know about that have been proven in
we're not
science.
seeing. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
So that's what it looks like to me, is us taking, that's accountability.
Thank you. I agree. Ms. Lee?
Having the officers, indictments are great that they were actually brought against the officers. It's sad for me to think that after indictments were brought against these officers, that just months later, the same thing happened across the street. So I don't know how much these officers actually they're held accountable. I guess we'll see that in the Brooks case in a couple weeks when they're back in court to see if they've accepted these deals that I
bargains.
think we only know of 2 of them right now.
Was it the 18 to life?
I think on the
Nah, he
man-
turned that down.
Well, the man 2 was a mid-range, which would probably be 4 to 12, and the murder charge 18 years. We don't know if it was 18 to life. His wonderful traffic attorney has said he will not, for Farina, take 18 years. So the other obstacle I see is trying that case in 09.
I mean,
because
if I was sitting on a jury and saw that video, I would definitely convict, but
It's prison time times 3. They're all
exactly.
right
You know, so I think
there.
it may be hard. But again, just like the changes Michelle said, like we need some sort of outside oversight in the department. I mean, we have a commissioner who's like 4 or 5 family members work for docs, you know. It's just the way that it is, and I think that there has to be some sort of outside person looking at this. Like we know that there were reports years prior to Robert Brooks' death at Marcy where people went outside.
Caney.
Yeah.
Caney went in. And they released one for Wallkill like that. You know, that's it. Caney does these reports all the time. And they document horrendous abuses that should be preemptively addressed so that they don't digress into even worse situations.
And if we had outside sources looking in, those would get handled.
But this is the other side of it, because OSI is already investigating, but they'll come up unsubstantiated. Why is that? Because it's the word of the correctional officers and the word of the incarcerated individuals, which up until this point, nobody ever believed the incarcerated individual. And this specific one, there's video. That's the key point that you have to know here is that any other investigation, when they don't have that video, they're not going to believe them. And this is
Well, because I don't want to go off the topic. So I want to hear Nicole. What does accountability look like for you? And and also think about. I want you to think about this, Cheryl. Like, are there specific policy recommendations or reforms you hope?
do we got 5 hours?
No, we don't have 5 hours. We don't.
But
We're
we
wrapping up.
definitely need a formally incarcerated component. You need a component of formally incarcerated people to work alongside. Like, you know, you've got accreditation and things like that. You need like people who were formally incarcerated are on the right track. You need them to go back because that's the set of eyes you need back in there to see if they're doing what they say they're doing.
That's a good idea.
Accountability for me, if someone is in the system and they're written up for something, let it be legitimate. You know, if somebody is getting charged with something, let it be legitimate. Don't come to work with a chip on your shoulder and make up claims um, to make that person have to stay incarcerated longer or, you know, get more, strikes against their names or have under other inmates looking at them like, oh, you're a problem and this is why we're on lockdown or whatever the case may be. You know, instead of making it a system where they're ganging up on the inmates or vice versa, make it to where, you know what, these people are actually going in and they are coming out somewhat reformed because you're not going to get true reform, but you could get something out of it. And there are people that go in there and they keep their head down the best way they can. They go in the law library, they learn what they can learn, they help other inmates. But there are and they're okay. But there's also people that try to do that too and they still get messed with, and so I just think that at the end of the day, I think they just need to tear the whole system down and rebuild it. I'm just being honest. They just need to start from this. I don't know what the governor needs to do, but she needs to. I honestly, I'm gonna say this in her defense. Sending the National Guard in there was the best thing. I think it is a start with that. And if they can actually get people in there that are trained to deal with people that have true humanity in their heart, and I think they're a step in the right direction. Um, are they truly going to be reformed coming out? I don't believe that. I don't. I don't know. After what I saw, I don't. I just don't believe that. But I do believe that they can start with just like what I said, just tearing down the system and just rebuilding it back up. That's it.
Or
Mine's a little more complicated.
Well, we can't be too
I know.
out of time.
I think solution-based things need to include a component that has education for people that are not familiar with criminal justice forums. So with that, I want to thank Nicole because she gave us airtime on her show yesterday to talk about these issues, which is not usually what her show is about. So having the opportunity to reach, like we could preach to the choir all day. That's not going to change the issues that we're facing because we got to reach the other people that don't know what really goes on. And I think education is key, not just for that, but for also the family members, which, as we talked about in the group, we try to show them how to manage this system. But at some point, they need to say enough is enough because these are state employees getting paid by our tax money. And this is an administrative agency. They are not above the law. So start implementing that because you look like a bunch of idiots. You're sitting here letting correctional officers act like Osama bin Laden terrorists, and they're making demands to you. And they're an employee of an agency. Why do they think that they can do that? Dismantle and dispower the union because it's been like that up to this point. In this incident, the union didn't support what they were doing. However, that union has been a problem for a very long time because that's what part of the investigation of the abuse and disciplinary is handled by the union. So docs couldn't fire anyone. They had to go through the union disciplinary process. And there was a large investigation the Marshall Project did showing how disparate those investigations were. And, the whole problem has to be addressed. If you just take this little piece of the pie over here, this whole rest of the pie, say you put that in the refrigerator, the rest of the pie is going to spoil because you're not taking care of the entire problem. Because in this issue, it's not just one thing, it's multiple things that have been tolerated by the state. And you can't tell me they don't know because they know. And I know this for a fact because I have sent the photos to the commissioner. They know this has happened in a daily basis and they support that culture of violence because they've been doing it all this time. So to get away from that, how do you do that when it's generational? As we spoke of earlier, it's very difficult to dismantle. And again, every part of this system has been statistically found that racism is involved. It was involved in the parole decisions that broke in the New York Times 5 years ago. They did nothing. It's involved in the disciplinary system. That's an IG report, and anyone could drop a class action just with their report because it goes back like 15 years and it goes through every single thing that the former commissioner Annucci did. And it totally sets them up that they knew this problem existed and it continues today. So when you have all these problems, you have to address all of them to get one isn't going to be enough to fix it.
Holistic
I
approach.
agree.
You're right.
Yeah.
We can talk about this, man. I can talk about this.
We could be here all day.
I do think that one of the ways that they can, I do think that something that should be implemented is that the COs should be required to have at minimum, their associates, and
Yeah.
they should also study psychology while they're in college. I think that should be a recommendation. I don't think you should be a CO without having a degree, at least an associate. And your minor or major should be psychology. Need to understand how the mind works and how a person's thoughts manages their behavior. And if you don't know how to do that, if you don't understand that, then you should not.
Compass score. Every
Compass
time you go for
risk
parole,
assessment.
you have to
Yeah, we should
get
do
a compass
we should do a
assessment, and
compass
the CO
assessment
should
on
have
the
to.
CO.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
So-
But see where their mentality is.
Yes.
Like their risk factor of doing these things that they're not supposed to do,
Right.
should they be able to keep their job?
But going back to
It makes
education,
sense though.
going back to education, like Cheryl said, you need to be educated. If the system is only damaged because of the behavior of the people who are manipulating the system. So if you want to change a person's behavior, your mindset, and correctional officers who beat on the gentleman, your mindsets need to be changed. And if your family's supporting the actions that you did, their mindset needs to change. You need to go to college, you need to understand psychology, want to be working around people who have mental health issues, you need to understand that. And so I think that in order for you to be a CEO, you should have your soul at a minimum in psychology. Ladies, thank you all for sharing your perspectives and engaging in this crucial conversation. I wish we had more time. I can talk to you all for hours, which we kind of technically did. So really quick, we're going to go around 30 seconds. What are you currently doing? Is there anything? Can people follow you? Twitter, Facebook, say the name of the groups again, and then we will close out.
Okay. Michelle Bonet, you can catch me at, so many ways. You can get me at michellebonet.com. That's MICHELLEBONET.com. Our Facebook group is NYSDOCCS Federal Oversight at Facebook. And I am Michelle Bonet NCPM at Instagram.
I'm April Lee. Find me at Mothers of Incarcerated Sons on Facebook. If you are a mother of an incarcerated son, we have also loud grandmothers, aunts into group. If you are in need of support, you can find us there. Or also, if up to date on New York State Docs Federal Oversight Group, with the goings on in New York Department of Correction and how we're fighting the fight, feel free.
I'm Nicole S. Backus, and you can follow me at New York Queens, and that's NY Queens, QUEENS, Unplugged, UNPLUGGED, and that's on Instagram. And then also on Instagram, you can follow me at Sun Moon Rising _films.
I'm Cheryl L. Cates, Esquire. Let's see, you can find me a lot of places. No, no, you can find me in the Facebook group, which they've given you the handle NYSDOCCS Federal Oversight. I have my own website for my law firm. It's www.CHERYL. I gotta think what my own website is. Cheryl L. I think it's lcatesesq.com, but if it don't work, take the L out. My number is 585-820-3818 at my law firm. And we'll be launching Changing the Narrative film in the near future. So you can check that out once we drop it.
So Cheryl's website is CherylCatesESQ.com. No L. Take the L out.
Yeah, take it out.
Take the L out. And I am Charles Lewis, the host of Taste of Transformation. Just continue to follow us on Spotify and YouTube. Thank you for joining us on this special episode of Taste of Transformation, where we've explored the critical topic of justice impact reform. We've highlighted the key discussions around restorative justice, the importance of rehabilitation over incarceration, and innovative solutions to systematic challenges. We hope these insights inspire meaningful action and drive ongoing dialogue in pursuit of equity and positive change. Let's carry these valuable lessons forward and actively contribute to justice reform in our community. We look forward to continuing this important conversation with you soon. Have a wonderful day.